difficult to breed. We've got pigs that have been pushed to make more and more, pork, and then we start to have problems with disease. You see, things like productivity and disease resistance, there's sort of two opposing goals. Two other opposing goals are high productivity and meat quality. You take any animal and you want to just put out the most meat, okay, like quinine and cattle would be a good example, you tend to get a lot of tough meat. And then some people are using beta agonists, which are not hormones, or not antibiotics, to make animals heavier. Yeah, and you end up with a lot of tough muscle when you do that. And I've been following all the stuff going on with colony collapse disease. Like the big mystery with that, why were the bees having all these problems? Well, I just was reading Bee Magazine today and talking to some beekeepers, and the problem is biological system overload. These commercial beekeepers are doing stuff to bees that if we did it to pigs, they'd be dead. Moving them all around all these different places all over the country. Okay, you've bred them to be more productive. And then you take all the honey away and you feed them sugar water. That would be as if we fed pigs only corn, and we didn't give them any vitamin premix or any mineral premix. That's just not going to work. I'm going, you don't feed, so you put all these antibiotics in the sugar you feed them, but you're not giving them any micronutrients? We don't do that to the other livestock. You see, I think in a lot of these things, I'm trying to solve problems. It's good to go across different disciplines. When I started reading articles like 6 or 7 years ago on colony collapse disorder, they didn't know what caused it. Then I read a paper relatively recently about it that was good. But then talking to the beekeepers here, people take all the honey away and you just feed them sugar? Well, you wouldn't do that to other livestock. If they're actually doing that, that's like stupid. No wonder they got a problem. I think it's hard lots of times for people to look at what is optimal. What's the optimal thing to do? And yesterday I was doing a talk for some young people, and I had a young man ask me, what's more important, weight gain in pigs or structural correctness of feet and legs? They're both important. In fact, the pig industry got in a big bunch of trouble because they selected just for productivity, big loins, rapid weight gain, and they forgot about feet and legs until they had terrible problems with feet and leg conformation. And then they finally started doing something about it. And there's some people think that we don't need to do visual appraisal on animals. And I go, yeah, we do. Visual appraisal hopefully will keep us out of trouble. I just talked to somebody the other day where they had this bull that had all these wonderful EPDs, and I think EPDs are a really good thing. But maybe you better look at this bull. Turned out he had twisted scrotum. And you want to use him for a breeder and he has twisted scrotum? That's not good. We've got to make sure he's structurally sound. Okay, examples of some of the things could be a sudden novel stimulus that can really scare an animal, something like suddenly opening an umbrella. That can scare an animal. Okay, first experiences with new people, new things, new equipment need to be good. Here's a horse that was terrified of black cowboy hats. White cowboy hats were good, but black hats were bad. Because during a veterinary procedure, somebody had chucked alcohol in his eyes. And then I knew another dog that's terrified of baseball hats. Animals tend to associate something that we're either seeing or hearing when something really bad happens. Vision often is first, auditory second. Now when I put the hat down on the ground, it was less scary. Now as I raised the hat up towards my head, it got more and more and more scary. Now here are some other examples of sensory-based memories. Men with beards are bad. An elephant was terrified of a diesel-powered engine. The diesel-powered engine was bad, gas-powered engines were good. And there's a lot of horses that get really upset when you use a jointed snaffle bit because somebody abused them with one of those horrible twisted wire horrible things. So every jointed bit now becomes scary. Now sometimes if you can just remove the thing that scares them, jointed bit, I can get rid of that. Black hats, I can't totally get rid of that. It'd be difficult to deal with that. These fear memories can be very difficult to get animals over them. Well, I had a kind of dangerous experience when I went on the movie set. We were going to take a PR picture with this Holderbrook trained show heifer right here, but she wasn't trained to reflector boards. And these are panels they use for the lighting in movies.
Oh,
And this heifer almost jumped in my head. And they assumed that she'd be okay with reflector boards because white box trucks were not a problem. Well, the thing is, trucks don't move the way reflector boards do. Reflector boards, you're moving them all around like this. She wasn't trained in reflector boards. See, animal memories tend to be specific. Another thing is, a truck tells you it's coming, too. It tells you it's coming. The reflector board doesn't tell you that it's going to move. And you need to make sure you don't do stuff like this, like slamming the bars on the animal's head. You do stuff like this, they're going to remember that. They're not going to want to go back in the chute again. Man on the horse, man on the ground. We already talked about the two cattle. Those are two different things. But you know it's the same thing with a horse. Let's say you adopt a Mustang. He might be really good for riding, but really terrible for everything you do on the ground. Because in his past history, he got abused by people on the ground. People on the back hadn't done anything. And I went and visited a prison program. And it turned out in this prison program for training Mustangs, prisoners were the good guys. And the horses were afraid of the guards. Because it was out west, and the guards wore Western hats and jeans, and that was very similar to what the people at the roundups wore. Well, nobody at a horse roundup wore, prison clothes. And you can have animals that have, talk about the cattle that have been handled just on horseback, giving you problems. I want to end up, before I get into question and answer, some stuff on bull safety. Bulls, cattle bulls, are the number 1 cause of fatalities involving livestock, where you die. Now, horses are number 1 for just getting you hurt really bad. You don't usually die. And one of the bulls that can be the most dangerous bull is a hand-reared pet. Because what happens is, he becomes imprinted to people, he thinks he's a person. So then when he gets sexually mature, 18 months to 24 months, instead of going out and attacking the other bulls, he attacks people. Now the way to prevent this from happening, let's say you have an orphan bull calf, get it on a nurse cow, get it into a group with other calves, or let's make a steer out of it. Right away, like right now, and just eliminate the problem. And then the dairy bulls, they're worse than the beef bulls. There are some genetic factors, but it also has to do with how they're raised. Because Ed Price, years ago, did a study with Herefords. Herefords usually a really calm, mellow kind of cattle. And he raised little Hereford bull calves in individual pens. And when they grew up, about half of those were attacking people and really dangerous. Where the little Hereford calves that were reared on mama, out of 1,000 mama cows and calves, only one of those turned nasty. But the ones that had been raised in the little individual stalls, way over half of them turned nasty. If a bull's going to turn bad, it usually happens at 18 to 24 months. Now, what people often don't recognize is what's called the broadside threat display. Obviously, if he's pawing the ground because head down, you know what that means. But the broadside threat, he turns sideways, and he's going to show you how big and bad he is. They turn sideways and demonstrate this, hunch up their neck and show you how big and bad their neck's going to be. Now, bulls that do this type of display towards people, you probably need to just get rid of them. And don't sell them at the auction to kill somebody else. No, you don't. You escort them to the locker point and make sure it doesn't kill anybody there. And the thing that we got to do with this behavior problem is to prevent it. Let's raise young bulls right. See, it's not a cow thing. Heifer, you can raise her. Kids are raised lots of steers in the backyard, that's fine. Steers and heifers, it's not a problem. But the grazing animal male, the ram will knock you over, but he usually doesn't kill you. And when you've got an animal with a mom with a newborn, that's when they often are they are going to be aggressive. When the calf is really young, more aggressive. And most people know that mother animals can be very aggressive. It might be a good idea to keep the calf in between you and her. Now this brings up another thing. Selecting animals for temperament. We did some studies that showed that animals that remain calm during handling gain more weight. Other studies have shown that animals that race out of the chute after you've worked on them gain less weight. So for some of the breed associations now, they've got EPDs for selecting for the calm animal. Yeah, but don't over-select for a single trait. I want a calm animal, but I don't want to turn beef cattle into a bunch of Holsteins that don't take care of their calves and don't forage. I can't emphasize enough. You over-select for any single trait, you will wreck your animal. Look at what we've done with dogs. Look at the mess that the bulldog is. It can't breathe, it can't walk, and it can't have its babies naturally. And people think that's cute? No. I think it's a hideous freakazoid. And if you want to see what a bulldog used to look like, go on Google Images and type in Bulldog's Dilemma. And you will see a 1938 New York Times picture of a bulldog. It's got a snout. It's actually got legs. They're about that long. It's an animal that actually will function. You know, and I think one of the really most important things in animal welfare is we've got to have animals that function. We're breeding pigs now that don't seem to have any disease resistance. You've got some people that are putting HEPA filters, that's the kind of filters you use for the bubble boy, on the windows of the pig barn so the germs don't come in. I'm going, what? Hospitals don't even have that for pig. No, that's not the right approach. Maybe we need to breed some hardiness back in. And then you're going to have to lose a little teensy bit of production. You see, I think it's hard for a lot of people to get this through their head about what's optimal. I'm not suggesting going back to 1950s style animals, but maybe we cut the production just a little bit on the dairy cow. Because right now, to get that Holstein dairy cow to breed, I just read a brand new paper in the Journal of Dairy Science. I got to feed her some awfully fancy stuff. Feed her lots of fats, feed her lots of vitamins and minerals. Yeah, at least we do that for the dairy cows, and the bees don't get fed anything. And when I found out about that, I'm going, well, no wonder you got a problem with them. You know, there's basic principles, and you overload or push the biological system too hard, it's going to start giving you problems. There's always trade-offs. Productivity and disease resistance tend to be kind of opposites. Quality of meat and productivity. You know, what is the optimal thing to do? See, what people forget is it takes energy to run the immune system. It takes energy